Hey guys, I turned my sign on today. I always forget to turn it on, but I remember this time. So, anyway, with the anniversary of H2O Just Had Water being this month, the 20th anniversary, I thought I would make a video on this topic. So, today I'm going to be sharing some of my season 3 theories that I've come up with through the years of watching and rewatching. I've shared my other theories in previous years, but this year we're focusing just on season 3. And hopefully my theories will help fill in some of the plot holes that a lot of fans dislike about season 3. So, if you don't know, season 3 wasn't originally planned. It's because the fans wanted more. So they had to redo a bunch of their sets, because they didn't have any of them anymore. So they had to rebuild all their sets, and so some plot holes are chalked up to that. The time gap in between and having to rebuild a lot of sets. And so those, I don't really have any theories to fix that. But let's start with probably the most hated character of season 3 that is not a villain, and that is Will. So Will, he was always, painted as a love interest and someone that the girls could trust, but he did a lot of things that contradicted that people seem to give him a lot of hate for. And I have a theory that might explain his behaviors. Will is on the spectrum. Maybe. He might have been on the spectrum. And while I didn't pick up on it immediately while watching, his behaviors and the things he says and does do kind of hint towards it. But I didn't pick up on it immediately because these things can also be caused by having a sheltered upbringing. He was homeschooled and his parents moved around a lot. Now, there are two reasons that Will could have been homeschooled. First reason is because they moved around a lot and his parents just found it easier to homeschool him rather than enrolling him in a new school every year. But you'd think if that was the case, then Sophie would have the same, issues that Will has, because she would have had the same upbringing. She would have also been homeschooled. And so she would have had the same problems socially that he does. But she doesn't, which makes me think that he was homeschooled not because it was easier, than enrolling him in a new school every year, but because he's on the spectrum and he needs a more specialized education. Because, my sister is neurotypical, and she had a public school education for her entire school career. She went to a public school. I, on the other hand, stopped going to a public school after elementary school, and I started a private school that was better fit for my educational needs, or just my needs in general, because not all of it was surrounded by education. It was also my social needs. And a lot of parents of neurodivergent children will homeschool because their child needs a more specialized education, and where they live, they don't have a school that is equipped for that. And with Will's parents moving around a lot, they can't guarantee that wherever they move to will have a school that is equipped for that. So it's just easier for them and better for Will to homeschool him. Although, one thing that I haven't been able to explain is his parents' absence. Because if he were autistic, you'd think his parents would be more involved in his life, but we see him living on his own, and his parents are mentioned but never seen. But if he's not autistic, then it doesn't really make sense for him to have these social issues and not Sophie. And I, as an autistic person, did not originally pick up on all these things that fans hate him for. I didn't pick up on really any of that until I joined Reddit and realized, oh wait, people hate him because of this? Okay. Looking at it again, it is kind of a red flag. And some issues were huge red flag, but if he's autistic, then I kind of understand a little bit why he did it. Like when Ricky was kidnapped, he knew where she was, and so when the girls came to him and he gave them a condition, he'll tell them, where he delivered that food in exchange for them telling him everything they know about mermaids. Now, if he's autistic, I kind of understand why he did that. It was still a real shitty thing to do, but I kind of understand it if he's autistic. So, when my best friend and I were in school, we would sometimes have these fights, but they would only last a day. But now that I've known her for 12 years and I can tell when there's more to the story than she's telling me, our fights last longer. I know that I am not getting the full story about why she's upset, and I can't let it go until I know the full story. And so he knows that Bella's not given him the full story, and he just can't let it go. And since he knows Ricky's location, the situation doesn't seem as serious to him as it does to the girls who do not know Ricky's location. So yeah, he knows exactly where she is, so he feels like there's no real need to freak out quite yet. While it was a dick move, I understand it somewhat. I still think that he should have gotten the answers to his questions after Ricky was rescued instead of before. Because, even if you know where she is and it doesn't seem that urgent, in the time that it takes, Cleo and Bella to tell you everything they know about mermaids, Ricky could have been killed or hurt, raped, really anything. It's not just her location that is an issue. It is her safety. But I get it, he didn't think that the kidnappers would actually do anything to hurt her. Because one of my fatal flaws is I give people the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't. When I should be more cautious. Especially if it's someone that I don't know. If I don't know them that well, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because I don't know them that well. And so that's probably, what he was doing. He was giving them the benefit of the doubt. they were just holding her captive but wouldn't actually hurt her. And he did play a big part in her rescue, so he's didn't do that because he's a bad guy. Or like, you can see in one episode, Bella and Will had just gotten together and he's showing her his seashell collection. And she is bored out of her mind, but he's not picking up on that. That's an autistic thing. He is info dumping and sharing his special interest with someone. And so he's not picking up on the fact that she's not as interested in this hobby of his as he is. Kind of gives off that he's reading social cues, trying to fit in, and instead of like actually like genuinely being himself and interacting. His obsession with free diving and shell collecting and just being in the water, that all just screams autistic special interest to me. Although he didn't immediately click as autistic with me, because some of these behaviors could also be derived from being homeschooled and moving around a lot and not having friends. And so the fact that he does all these things and says all these things that for a neurotypical person seem like inappropriate or like a red flag or just shitty behavior, make him seem like a bad boyfriend, these all make perfect sense if he is on the spectrum. And then of course we have Bella. There is no way a 9-year-old girl kept that kind of secret from her parents. There's no way they didn't know, unless they were absentee parents. Because once again, just like with Will, they are always mentioned but never seen. And so there's no way she would have been able to keep that from her parents if they were, present parents. If she didn't tell her parents, she would have told her nanny or a babysitter or someone. No 9-year-old would be able to keep a secret like that. And once again, her parents moved around a lot. She didn't, stay at the same school for 2 years in a row. So making friends was going to be really hard. And plus, she's got this secret that by this point, she knows she needs to keep a secret. And she meets these two girls who are just like her. The only difference is their parents don't know about them, but their boyfriends do. And so maybe she just kept it from Cleo and Ricky that her parents knew. Because while she didn't give off that she was someone desperate for friendship, it makes more sense than her being able to keep that secret from her parents. Because we can all understand why Cleo and Ricky didn't tell their parents. Ricky's from a single parent household. Your dad has enough to worry about. And they're old enough to know that this is something that you should be really careful about who you tell. I mean, that didn't stop her from telling Zane, but still. Anyway, Cleo, on the other hand, she doesn't just have one parent. She also has a little sister who is, frankly, a pain in the ass. And you wouldn't want Kim finding out. Especially after that episode of season 1 where Cleo wrote a diary and Kim found it. And got Elliot involved and tried to expose her sister as a mermaid to everyone. So, yeah, you would be extra careful about who you tell, after that incident. You would not want anyone close to Kim knowing your secret. For fear that Kim will find out through them. And it'll be the diary situation all over again. But Bella, on the other hand, only child and still very much a child when she became a mermaid. And she didn't seem to have a lot of friends, and she finally had these two girls that she could relate to. And you know, when you're moving around all the time like that, it's hard to make friends and to keep them. And so she didn't want to be the odd one out. She was the only one whose parents knew that she was a mermaid. And so she lied and said that they didn't know out of fear of being the odd one out. Plus, Ricky and Cleo seemed a bit judgy at times, especially when it came to Bella telling anyone her secret. Because when you have a secret like that and you move around a lot and switch schools all the time, it is really hard to, find people you relate to and to feel like you fit in. And so while she doesn't seem, that worried about it on the outside, that doesn't mean she's not on the inside. You spend as long as she did hiding a huge part of yourself from pretty much everyone. You get really good at, putting up that mask. Yeah, then of course there's Zane's character roller coaster. You see, season 1, he was kind of an asshole. Season 2, he got better. He became someone that the girls could trust. Season 3, back to being an asshole. So what happened there? Well, here's what I think happened there. His dad stopped giving him money. And so, the kind of stress of struggling financially when you've never had to worry about money a day in your life made him revert back to his roots of being an asshole. He was nicer because he never had to worry about money or things like that. And so then when he, started actually having to worry about money, the stress got to him and he didn't know how to handle it. And so he kind of reverted to his original state as kind of like a safe space. Because when he was an asshole rich kid, he never had to worry about money. So if he continues to act like a spoiled rich kid, then people won't discover that he's secretly no longer a spoiled rich kid. It's kind of all about the pride, fragile masculinity. I have a feeling a lot of his friends were only friends with him because he had money. And so when he no longer had money, either they stopped wanting to hang around with him, or he feared that they would if they found out that he no longer had money. So, just look at Sophie. She was all over him because he had money. And that's probably the same, reason a lot of Zane's friends were friends with him. Nate was probably the only one who genuinely liked Zane when he was a rich jerk. Everyone else he feared wanted him for his money. So he thought if he kept acting like a rich jerk, they wouldn't abandon him like his dad did. Because his dad did financially abandon him in season 3. Although that doesn't excuse him being a jerk. He was still very much a jerk. It just helped explain why I think his character arc failed. For lack of a better way to put it. And so, yeah, his redemption didn't stick. And, granted, I realized this theory about Zane isn't as fleshed out as the other theories. It's just my personal thoughts about why he, went back to being a jerk like that. When characters don't usually revert back to their original state after they've had a redemption arc. So it's just something I wondered about, so I decided to try and figure out why I think that might have happened. Just try to find an explanation for it. And so that's what I did. I admit the Will one is real fleshed out because a lot of it is my own experiences. Because, like, as an autistic person watching the show, I never realized that there was anything wrong with his character at all. And, you know, then I go to Reddit and find out that there are so many people that hate his character because of things that he did that I never found a problem with. And so that one is obviously the most fleshed out. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have your own theories regarding any season of H2O or Mako Mermaids, feel free to share it with me because I love hearing other people's theories. And it does sometimes help me build my own theories. I can take someone else's theory and then build upon it and end up with these really fleshed out headcanons. And I love to share my really fleshed out headcanons. So, anyway, bye guys.